Hello, I'm so glad God gave me another opportunity to come and present God exists, proved through prophecies. This is a part three. And if you had not watched part one or part two, I would ask you to go back and review it because this is a continuous series. And I'm hoping that I'll provide about 10 presentation on God exists and its proof. And so what I want to talk to you today is about Ezekiel, who existed 2,500 years ago, and he made some prophecies. So we want to look at that. What did he do? He prophesied events that will happen in his lifetime and also events that will happen in the future. Ezekiel chapter 37 actually starts with 36. 36 talks about how he envisions Israel as it is reformed, but 37 is actually talking about the reformation of Israel. And chapter 38 to 39 is about the World War III, that I would assume that's three, or the last World War that will be taught in the Valley of Megiddo. And we usually refer to as the War for Armageddon. More than likely, many of you have heard about this particular war, okay? And chapter 40 to 49 is about the new temple and ushering of Messiah's kingdom at that time. Okay, so now let's talk about what happened prior to Ezekiel's prophecy. Babylon was captured. Babylon actually captured Israel in 586 BC, and I have made two presentations talking about this. Israelites were allowed to rebuild the temple and return to their land by Cyrus, Persian the king. Much of the expense to rebuild the temple and the wall were financed by Cyrus the Great. Eventually, the second temple was expanded and remodeled by Herod the Great. That's the king that reigned in Israel or in Judea at the time of Jesus' birth. We see that only some of the Israelites returned to Israel, and many did not. And many really did not even want to rebuild the temple or the wall. See the two books in the Bible, Nehemiah and Ezra, that talks about this. We had discussed about some of those who stayed behind in Babylon and in Iran, such as Mordecai and Esther. Now, Ezekiel chapter 37, I want to read the first three verses here. This is the background of dry bones. The hand of the Lord was upon me and carried me out in the spirit of the Lord and set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones, and caused me to pass by them round about. And behold, there were many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry. And he said unto me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, O Lord God, thou knowest. Now, at that time, if you really look through this and see this dry bones, can these bones live? And the answer would be, obvious answer would be no. That's exactly what people thought about Israel or the Jewish nation all throughout um, you know, the AD, pretty much after Jesus' resurrection, and the temple was destroyed in 72 or so AD, all the way to 1900. This is what people thought. There's no way. So, dry bones, the background I'm trying to explain a little bit, they were totally, meaning the Israelites were totally destroyed by Romans in 70 AD, meaning that those who lived in that area in Judea. Roman Emperor Hadrian hated Jews so much, even he changed the name of Israel to Palestine in 119 AD. Now see, even the name was taken, and we can see that their language is gone, the name of the land was taken, and there are no people to speak of living in that area. So the land of Israel and Judea will not be remembered any longer. The nation was essentially dead at that time and decayed like dry bones. That's what happens to a human being when it's dead. All we get out of is dry bones. That really represent no hope. Even their language changed from Hebrew to Aramaic to Greek, and meaning there's no common language. One of our problems in India at the time of British rule was we did not have a common language that was ours. So we used English as a common language, and many parts of the land did not speak English well at all. And then once we got independent, we chose one language, a common language, that is Hindi. You see, this is very important for a nation to have a common language. So Israelites did not have a common language. If you want to destroy a nation and a people group, scatter them, rename their land, and change their language. And that's what happened. They were scattered throughout the world, many in USSR and Europe, and some in other parts of the world. Even though it is a movie, one should watch The Fiddler on the Roof to learn about the plight of the Jews at that time. And by the way, that's one of my favorite movies. And if you haven't watched it, I would ask you to go ahead and do that so you get some idea what I'm talking about today. The Jews are scattered by the Romans. As a result, many did not have the Torah. The oral Jewish law was codified, or Mishnah, in 210 AD. That's because many of them did not have the Torah itself. By the way, I have in my possession a Torah that is handwritten in a scroll in 1500s. And so I'm very fortunate to have that. After Roman rule, they were ruled by Byzantine, Arab, Islamic, Catholic Crusader, Mamluk, Ottoman, and British. And you probably should go through the history to learn all that. Many of you listening to me migrated to USA, or your parents or grandparents did. How many of you or your children want to go back to the country where you do not have a home? In this case, there's not even a country or language. I, for one, for the first 20 years of my life here in the United States, I wanted to go back. After my children were born and I had a good job and a home, going back home became a distant dream. When I say home, it is still India. But for my children and grandchildren, home is USA. And if I tell them, let's go home, they would not understand what that means. So I'm trying to explain to you that's how Jewish people all over the world who migrated hundreds, maybe even thousands or so years ago would have felt. Put the Jewish nation in that light, after 1,500 years, would they desire to go back? Can these dry bones live? By man's standards and logic, no, never. So British rule, and I'm not talking about shaking of the bones, that's the next few verses. If you read that, you'll see that there's a shaking of the bones. A subgroup of British population believed that they were part of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Just as Mormons in USA, many of them believe that. After the First World War, the Ottoman Empire was dissolved, and the League of Nations granted Britain administration of Judea and Palestine, which included present-day Israel and Jordan. In 1917, British declared that they were in favor of a national home for the Jews. The declaration is known as the Balfour Declaration. In Ezekiel 37:7 reads, "So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone." This is the shaking I'm talking about. So some of the important things to know about the shaking of the bones, or actually creating some movement. Ezekiel 37:3-5, and he said to me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" And I answered, "O Lord, thou knowest." Again he said unto me, "Prophesy upon these bones, and say unto them, Ye dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God unto these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live." Ezekiel prophesied about the formation of Israel from the dry bones some 3,000 years ago. Also about the time of Zephaniah prophesied rebirth of Hebrew as the language. Now you may want to read Zephaniah 3:9. I don't read all these portions because that's just prolong the video length, and I want to keep it as short as possible. The shaking of the bones started with the Zionist movement by Theodor Herzl in 1896, which led to the first Zionist Congress. Hebrew is reborn. Jews were speaking Yiddish, Aramaic, and Greek. In 1900, Eliezer ben Yehuda, a linguist, started the movement to speak Hebrew at his home. Many others, it should say many others started speaking Hebrew or adopted his lead. After Balfour Declaration, Hitler attempted to eliminate Jews, what is known as the Holocaust. Balfour Declaration, as I mentioned the previous slide, was by Britain. In 1947, UN proposed the establishment of Arab and Jewish states. So now life, we just read earlier that life was breathed into Israel in Ezekiel 37:10. So I prophesied as commanded to me and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood up on their feet, an exceeding great army. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. So there's no problem. People think that, well, this prophecy could not be about Israel, but it clearly states that here. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, O my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come out of your graves and bring you into the land of Israel, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. When I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I shall place in you in your own land, then shall you know I, the Lord, have spoken it and performed it, saith the Lord. See, this is a clear indication. The Lord is saying that when this happens, you will know I live. And this is the reason I titled this presentation as God Lives Proof. And this is a proof. In 1948, in May, David Ben-Gurion declared Israel's independence. By the way, this was 1 year after my birth. So the conclusion is that Ezekiel 36 is the promise of what is explained in 37. You know, I have been to Israel and I have seen the prosperity of the land, green everywhere. I have seen the land where fruit grows, olive trees, and even in the mountain, all sorts of fruits growing on the both sides of the road as we drive through. Israel is a major exporter of the fruits and flowers to Europe. Would have never imagined that be the case. And these accomplishments prophesied 3,000 years ago. God called Abraham out of Iraq and told him to travel to a place he will show him, about 1,000 miles, and gave Abraham that land. Only land God decreed to anyone since creation of the earth. 36, chapter 36, desolate land will be tilled, will look like Garden of Eden. And I tell you, as I travel through there, I have seen how beautiful the land is. Of course, I'm from Kerala, and it's a very, very beautiful place. For me to say another place is as good or better than Kerala is very difficult. But I testify to the fact that it's a beautiful land. All of these accomplishments are prophesied many, many years ago. That proves that God lives. May God bless you through these words. Bye-bye.